This morning, detectives flooded Maddington Street, a man in his 50s fatally stabbed. A romance scam warning: a Perth woman robbed of thousands by an AI-generated catfish. The Prime Minister's call for a regional police force in the Pacific Islands endorsed. And the latest inflation figures, what it means for interest rates and mortgages.
This is 7 Morning News, live from Perth with Charlotte Goodlet.
Good morning. Homicide detectives have swarmed a street in Maddington after a man was killed in a stabbing last night. 2 teenagers are among those who say they saw the horrific attack unfold. Nick Overall has the details.
Well, it was just before 8:30 last night that emergency crews were called to a home here on Dunnell Street, where they discovered a man in his 50s with a stab wound to his leg. The man was rushed to Armidale Hospital but died a short time later. It's understood a woman in her 40s who is known to him fled the scene but was arrested on a nearby street. One young witness described seeing the attack.
And then that's when he was sitting there on the couch. It was like he was sitting there trying to hold on to himself like that there, trying to make all the blood, hold all the blood in. But he ended up just bleeding out then.
So you saw everything happen?
Yeah, I said he was on the couch and then he just dropped on the floor, and the next minute he was gone. There was nothing really you could do much about him.
The street remains blocked off by police who are still in the early stages of their investigation. At this stage, no charges have been laid.
A new warning has been sent out over online scammers. There's been a rise in romance scams, with frightening examples of offenders using AI technology to trick their victims. One Perth woman lost thousands due to a man using the technology to change his voice and his appearance on video calls. James Carmody explains.
Good morning. It's Scam Awareness Week, and this year there's a particular focus on romance scams. In recent weeks, authorities have learnt of 2 Western Australian victims who were scammed out of more than $1.4 million from romance scams. This morning we heard from the WA Commerce Minister, Sue Ellery, who says that romance scammers are the lowest of the low, targeting vulnerable and lonely people.
Unfortunately, there are also other scams that are on the increase as well. So whether it's online marketplaces, so Facebook Marketplace, for example, we've seen people losing money there. So far in 2024, WA ScamNet in consumer protection has heard from 201 victims, having lost some $330,000.
We heard from a romance scam victim, a woman named Maggie, who told us about the great lengths that her scammer went to rip her off, even using AI technology to fake a video call to make himself look like someone that he wasn't.
They will use health issues, damages, death, and anything they spot that might be a sensitive issue for you to get money out of you. They get agitated when you refuse to give them money and then blame you, making you feel guilty.
We'll bring you her full story and the latest tips on avoiding these sorts of scams in 7 News at 6.
The Prime Minister is in Tonga for the Pacific Islands Forum, hoping to lock in support to counter China's growing influence in the region. Anthony Albanese's suggestion of a regional police force has just been endorsed, despite pushback from some leaders. Here's Rob Scott.
As is always the case at the Pacific Islands Forum, the effects of climate change and rising sea levels on low-lying Pacific Island nations will be the major topic of discussion. Nowhere in the world is the effects of global warming having more of an impact than in this region. Despite receiving praise for his efforts to transition Australia towards renewable energy, Anthony Albanese is likely to come under some scrutiny from leaders here today for his government's decision to extend the life of gas to 2050, at a time when these leaders are imploring developed nations to cut back their reliance on fossil fuels.
There is no time to waste in pursuing prosperity for all our people.
Regional security will be another hot-button issue, with the riots in New Caledonia under the spotlight. The The Prime Minister managing to secure support for a Pacific policing initiative, a plan to establish 4 regional police training centres across the Pacific, a multi-country capability with a pool of officers ready to deploy to hotspots and to help during natural disasters, coordinated through a hub based in Brisbane.
We'll provide substantial long-term support to ensure that this initiative succeeds.
A strategic victory for Anthony Albanese, blocking China's attempts to roll out something similar.
Good to see you.
Good. And later today, we will see the other major victory for Australia, the agreement with Tuvalu, come into force. This was the deal struck at last year's Pacific Islands Forum to allow 280 people a year from the island to resettle in Australia. Right now, Anthony Albanese is sitting down with the Prime Minister of Vanuatu, one of a number of one-on-one meetings he's going to be having with leaders here in Tonga today.
The Federal Environment Minister is digging her heels in, denying claims she's the one blocking a proposal for a $1 billion gold mine. As Chris Reason reports, Tanya Plibersek says she's being reasonable.
Tanya Plibersek has been under intense pressure since her decision over this proposed $1 billion gold mine, but again putting it back on the company behind the project, Regis Resources, to do the heavy lifting. The Philamese gold mine project near Blamey in the state's central west was put on hold after a surprise decision from the minister last week that said the mine could go ahead, but only if it moved the controversial proposed site of the tailings dam there due to Indigenous heritage concerns. Now, the company said it whittled down that site from 30 possible locations across the property, and it's saying the whole project is now in jeopardy. Well, the minister today here at Chullora in Sydney's west called that nonsense, saying that if the project really was worth $7 billion like the company claims, and it was worth them getting it right. Here's what she had to say.
The company has said that they need to go back to the drawing board, that this could take 5 or 10 years. That's just nonsense, because the bulk of the project has been approved. I stand ready to ensure that any redesigned proposal can be quickly assessed.
Now, interestingly, the minister denied claims that she was simply pandering to the Green vote in her inner city Sydney electorate, but she did reveal today that the Heritage Act on which the decision was based would now be under review to make it easier for businesses to deal with Indigenous groups in situations like this.
The Mandurah Council has locked in its plans to redevelop its foreshore. The new commercial site has come with some controversy, with a microbrewery set to replace the much-loved King Carnival site that stood there for more than 50 years. Jessica Page has the details.
Well, the fate of the King's Carnival is now sealed. Its lease extended until next April, but then the rides will be pulled down and packed up, and in its place, the Mandurah Council has voted to proceed with a commercial lease for a multi-storey brewery and restaurant, chocolate factory and mini-golf. That will pay for public works around the western foreshore, the Mayor calling it the biggest investment in Mandurah in a decade. But there is bitter opposition to it too.
Since we began this waterfront revitalisation project in 2018, more than 3,500 people that have provided their feedback to this project. We're very conscious of the fact that there are concerns in relation to some specific elements, particularly around traffic and parking, but we're also really sure, having done that consultation over many years now, that this is in line with the community's expectations and that it'll deliver a really good outcome for Mandurah.
A few residents are threatening to pull the plug on their Christmas lights that are a famous feature of the Mandurah Canal during the festive season, insisting they haven't been listened to. But council says locals will get their say in the planning process now underway, with final designs likely a year away.
In some breaking news, the latest inflation figures have just been released, and the monthly consumer price index has fallen from 3.8% to 3.5% for the 12 months to July. The drop caused by state and federal energy rebates, bringing down the price of power. Petrol prices are also now sitting at a 13-month low. The Reserve Bank looks at the underlying inflation rate, which has also dropped to 3.8%. Fans of British rock band Oasis are preparing to buy tickets after the news that Noel and Liam Gallagher are putting aside their differences. The brothers confirming a reunion tour for the UK and Ireland next year. Joel Dry reports.
It was a big announcement here in the UK with Oasis going on Twitter to say the band is getting back together after 15 years of a bitter feud between Noel and Liam Gallagher. A statement today said the guns have fallen silent, the stars have aligned, and the long wait is over. People will have to wait one more year. The concert dates are for 2025. 14 dates at the moment, among them 4 days at Wembley Stadium and 4 scheduled in their home city of Manchester. It was long dreamed about this reformation and it has now come to reality. Clearly their differences have been able to be parked for a little while and Oasis are hitting the concert stage once again. It is touted to be a world tour, so hopefully that world tour includes Australia. We'll have to wait and see. Tickets go on sale in the coming days. No word yet on what they will cost, but already the website has been crashed. Such is the interest in Oasis finally returning to the concert stage. We just have to keep our fingers crossed that those concerts do make it all the way to Australia.
You're watching 7's Morning News live from Perth. Still to come, the federal government's plan to slash the amount of international students allowed in. And Donald Trump to be hit with new charges over allegations of interfering with election results.
Perth's biggest ever checkout changes. The new technology that promises to save you time. But Jenny got jammed.
I'm not sure what I scanned.
How her shopping shocker is set to become yours.
At the moment, it's bad enough you can't find people to help.
When it's coming to your local store on 7 News at 6.
The number of new international students allowed into Australia is set to be slashed by almost 20,000. Education Minister Jason Clare announcing the government will cap the number at 270,000 for next year. It follows a record number of enrolments this year. The changes will affect major city universities and colleges. Mr Clare says it would direct international students to regional and smaller universities. The Queensland Premier and the Brisbane Mayor are pushing to fast-track the city's metro extension plans. They're lobbying the federal government to complete the build before the 2032 Olympics. It would mean 22 new stations extending the network to suburbs outside the city. The population in southeast Queensland is expected to expand to 6 million people by 2046. Prosecutors in the United States have once again moved to charge Donald Trump with plotting to overturn the election he lost almost 4 years ago. The case against Trump had been frozen by a Supreme Court ruling, but the US Justice Department has now restarted its bid to convict the former president. Here's Tim Lister.
Donald Trump will make the run to this year's presidential election in early November, with his behaviour after the last election in 2020 still a live issue in America's courts. Prosecutor Jack Smith has issued a new indictment or formal charging document accusing Trump of enlisting allies to help him claim victory in battleground states, in fact won by rival Joe Biden. Also pressuring his Vice President Mike Pence to reject the legitimate votes from those states. Eventually, in the cauldron of the January 6 riot, Pence refused to comply. The federal case stalled when Donald Trump appealed, claiming a president had immunity from prosecution. The country's highest court largely agreed, ruling former presidents could not be prosecuted for official acts. Now, the prosecutor has trimmed the original charging document but kept 4 charges against Donald Trump.
I don't think that it changes anything legally. I think it's clearly an effort to try to do more election interference from Jack Smith.
It remains highly unlikely this could go to trial before the November election, but it does potentially put the case back in court as Donald Trump campaigns. Also, confirmation today from CNN that Democrat candidate Kamala Harris will hold her first TV interview since her presidential bid began. She'll sit down with her vice presidential pick Tim Walz the day after tomorrow.
Paramedics in Gaza say 8 children are among 20 people killed in the latest Israeli airstrikes. There have been bombings in downtown Gaza and Khan Yunis in the south. UN aid work is on hold because of new evacuation orders. The Israeli army says it has rescued a hostage being held captive in Gaza for more than 10 months after he was seized by Hamas militants. 2 people have been killed after a passenger jet's tyre exploded at Atlanta Airport. The incident happened in a maintenance area while the tyre of the Boeing 757 was being changed. A Delta Airlines employee and a contractor died at the scene. A third person suffered serious injuries. A few months ago, another Delta Boeing passenger jet lost its nose wheel while attempting to take off from the same airport. A community has rallied around 2 children whose lemonade stand was robbed in the US. A man posing as a customer made off with the children's jar of money containing $60. When locals heard about the brazen theft, they rallied to help the pair, flocking to buy their homemade lemonade. Thanks to their generosity, the young entrepreneurs earned themselves more than $9,000. Stay with us on 7 Sport is coming up after the break, including Port lock in a pair of young guns ahead of their qualifying final against Geelong. And Thanasi Kokkinakis pulls off one of the biggest wins of his career at the US Open. Welcome back. We've got some breaking AFL news. Richmond star Liam Baker has reportedly just requested a trade home to Western Australia. It comes as Hawthorn are making moves for next year. The Hawks are set to land West Coast Eagles vice-captain Tom Barrass. Barrass has asked to be traded to the Hawks despite having 3 years left on his contract. And Carlton forward Matt Owies will miss the Blues elimination final against Brisbane after his 1-game ban was upheld at the AFL Tribunal last night. Meanwhile, Port Adelaide has locked in tough defender Lachie Jones for another 2 years. The 22-year-old has cemented his role at the Power down back this season. Veteran forward Jeremy Finlayson has also re-signed for another year. He hasn't played since round 18 as he recovers from a lacerated spleen. Port's training this morning as it prepares for next Thursday night's qualifying final against Geelong. They will be without skillful defender Kane Farrell, who's out for the season after scans revealed a high-grade hamstring strain. The AFLW season begins on Friday night when the Swans host the Magpies at North Sydney Oval.
There's a lot of healthy rivalry there. It's a mutual respect, but very much want to win it, and that should put on a good show.
It will be the first time the women's season has started outside of Melbourne. Thanasi Kokkinakis is celebrating the biggest win of his Grand Slam career. The Aussie knocked out former world number 3 Stefanos Tsitsipas in the first round of the US Open. Tsitsipas battled a rib injury as Kokkinakis charged to a 4-set victory. It is just his second win from 6 US Opens.
I've had a lot of tight losses when I've been in winning positions, so that one's just all relief and it meant a lot.
10th seed Alex de Minaur also won on his return from a hip injury. A total of 9 Aussies are through to the second round so far. Daria Saville destroyed her racket after losing her opening match in 3 sets. The 30-year-old says she's considering retirement. Brodie Kostecki's long-awaited exit from Erebus Motorsport is imminent. The reigning supercars champion is set to replace Anton de Pascal at Dick Johnson Racing from next season. De Pascal has signed with Team 18, who've axed former champion Mark Winterbottom. In Formula One, just days after his fiery crash in the Netherlands, Williams have dumped Logan Sargent for the rest of the season. He will be replaced by Argentina's Franco Colapinto. I'll have all your weather details next on 7's Morning News. See you after the break.
For fans of true crime, a podcast taking you inside the country's most intriguing court cases. Australia's sharpest legal minds join the West's veteran journalist Tim Clark. The trials, happening right now. Caught in the act. New episodes every Friday.
It's set to be a mostly fine day in the city with a top of 21. We could see a light shower later on this evening, and it's looking pretty windy too, especially in our southern suburbs. Mandurah and Rockingham will reach a top of 19 degrees, 22 the top for Midland, and Joondalup heading for 21. We've got a high chance of showers tomorrow morning, 21 the top, 19 degrees on Friday. Again, some early drizzle, potentially a little damp on Saturday too for the last day of winter. And as we head into spring on Sunday, we're looking at a cloudy day, but Monday is looking delightful with a top of 25 degrees. And that is 7's morning news for this Wednesday. We'll have the latest updates right across the afternoon. I'm Charlotte Goodlet. Enjoy the rest of your day.
The 7 News app will give you the news you want. Download now.